Hi everyone. So I saw this or that book tag. Pretty short. It shouldn't take me that long to do. So the first one is paperback or hardback. Most times it's paperback, unless I see something that's really special, like a really special edition hardback. I've seen those too that are really nice. As long as it doesn't have comes with a dust jacket. I hate those dust jackets for hardcovers because they usually always rip. You got to take it off before you read the book. But I'd have to say, if it's something where I'm like, I already read the book and I'm just buying it as like a physical copy and I see like a special edition hardcover, I may end up getting it. But for the most part, I'm partial toward paperbacks because they're easier to kind of like open and handle in your hands. Over time, it's like hardcovers just get really heavy to, hold. So the second one is Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. I'm not really a huge fan of either, but I'd say like I've never read the books, not interested in reading the books. But I would say, like, if you were gonna do like a movie marathon, I'd probably do Harry Potter over Lord of the Rings, because I watched the movies once and I was bored. I was bored. It's just not my type of lore. But I will say, like, I respect the author that created the lore because it was an interesting story. Just all of the different stuff. Like, I follow different people who like Lord of the Rings, and I love their enthusiasm for the lore. But it's kind of like over my head, it's a little bit over my head. Harry Potter's a little easier to understand, I'll just say that. So the next one is real books or ebooks. I still like both. I still love to pick up a physical copy just for the fact that digital, I don't like, because you could lose that digital copy. Like, something could get erased. Like, say you really like this book and Amazon decided to delete it off its, if its website. You can't get that copy anymore because it's not there. Where with a physical copy, you can still have that copy, and something happens to where it gets, all of the copies go away or something in some way of like maybe a ban or something, then you still have the physical copy. This is, to me, it's like I always kind of keep physical media because of bad things that happened years ago where, having artwork or having a book is, something that a certain party love to ban and burn. So I definitely don't agree with like censoring things. So for me, I'm more apt of having like a physical copy of something than having a digital. So the next one is buying books or borrowing. Both. Usually both. I love using Kindle Unlimited. If it comes down a day where I can't support Kindle Unlimited anymore, then obviously I can go over to Kobo. Kobo has a program where you can go and get books from there. But I like borrowing books because I read a lot off of my Kindle Unlimited subscription. There's a lot of books I read off of there. So I just don't have the money or the space for all of these physical copies. So I'd say I do a bit of both, where I like to buy books and I like to, especially I also buy used books, but yeah, I also borrow as well. So this one's read in bed or read in chair. Both. I mean, I do either, I do both. I'd say mostly I read in bed because it's easier for me to read in bed while I'm laying down. I can read a lot more when I'm laying down or when I'm comfortable in my bed than my chair, but I will read anywhere, really, that I'm able to. So the next one is book club or read alone. I prefer to read alone. I really need to kind of like try doing like buddy reading with somebody, but I'm just not really a fan, because it's like I either go too fast or the other person goes too fast, and then it's, so I don't know. I really prefer to read alone. I can go at my own pace at that point, I don't feel like I have to keep up with somebody, or I feel like I'm going too fast for them, So I think I'd rather read alone. Plus also, like, book clubs, I've seen them to where it's like people could like get in arguments with somebody and like, I don't agree with that. And it's like, we're talking about opinions, people. Opinions about books. It's not that deep. You don't need to argue back and forth with each other about a book, especially something that's a work of fiction. So yeah, can we not do that? So for me, usually it's just, I'm better solo. I'm better solo. So the next one is library or bookstore. Even though I have a library right next door to me. I don't know. I like bookstores. I like going into bookstores. Because with the library, even though I want to support the library, there's only a certain amount of time you have the book to borrow it. And then you got to return it so that way someone else can read it. And it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. So I'd say for me, I prefer to buy something at a bookstore and then I have it, and I could have it for like 6 months or a year before I decide I want to read it, So yeah, I prefer the bookstore over the library. So nonfiction or fiction? Fiction. I'm not a fan of real life. I prefer to immerse myself into a story that has a, maybe a more happier ending, preferably, but, interesting, or if I'm reading a horror or something, then it's like, I definitely don't want that to be reality, if it's a horror, because I don't want to see it, or I don't want to deal with it. So, yeah, definitely more of a fan of fiction. Print or audio? I'd say I'm a bit of mix of both, because I have been listening to audiobooks lately, and there are times I think I do better at reading, I do better at getting through a book audio than I would print. Like, especially if it's something where it's like a self-help book, because I went and I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and I was better at listening to it than for me trying to read it, So it's a bit of both. It depends on the subject, the story, it depends on that. Sometimes I'm better with something that's print, because I would rather have the internal dialogue in my head rather than a narrator. Especially, there was a book I went and was listening to that was a romance. I did not like the narrator's, I did not like his interpretation of the female voice. It was like too much like this, and it was just, I didn't care for it. Some narrators, like, sometimes I would prefer a woman trying to do a deep voice kind of thing. I would prefer that over a dude trying to do a feminine voice. It's just, it doesn't work. It takes me out of the romance. Yeah. So yeah, not a fan. So there are times for books like that, it probably would have been better if I just read it print form than listening to it. So I usually like a lot of thrillers audio than print. So it all depends on what it is. So next one is new books or old books. I'm more partial to older books. because I like certain time periods, you know, like especially like when stuff came out in like either the 90s or things came out in like the early 2000s. Some books, like especially romances that are more modern day, I'm not always a fan. So I definitely would say I prefer older books over new books. But when it comes to new, you know, it's got to be somebody that I like, that I continue to read, that came out with like a new book. So the next one is short chapters or long. I prefer short chapters. It's easier to get through the book. It's easier to get through the book when the chapters are short. When it's long, I'm like, when is this over? When is this over for the chapter? So it's easier for me to get through a book quicker when it's a shorter chapter. I can put it down real fast after the chapter, and then I can go do what I need to do, and then I can pick back up again. I hate stopping in the middle of a chapter. So I prefer that if it's a short chapter, then it's easier to kind of like get through it. So that's just me. And the last one is tags. I'm not going to tag anybody in this. If you want to do the tag, do the tag. Otherwise, don't. So, but yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. And I will see you all on the next video. All right. Bye.